Hello, friends, and welcome to the Living Truth Podcast. This is Kristin, Cary. This episode is just going to be me today. And this episode is releasing in that week between Christmas and New Year's. And so whether you're listening to it right when it comes out in that space between those two major holidays, or whether you're listening to it early on in 2026 or in the future, I want to invite you to take a couple deep breaths with me. I know that you're breathing because you're alive, but have you noticed how short and shallow your breaths have been lately? For so many of us, the holiday season is just rush and hustle and bustle and doing for everybody else. And it's a crazy time of year for most people, but when you're dealing with a crisis in your life and your marriage, when your unwanted sexual behavior has been exposed and you're drowning in the shame, or when you've discovered that there have been sexual secrets in your marriage and with your spouse, and that betrayal has gutted you and knocked you over, the holidays can be absolutely brutal. So would you take a couple deep breaths with me? Would you breathe in, hold it at the top, and just breathe out really slowly? Let's do that again. Breathe in, hold it at the top, and breathe out really slowly. Just as I talk with you, I invite you to continue to tune your own attention in to your breath and to your body. Many of us are not even paying attention to how rapid and shallow our breath is, especially when we're dealing with chronic stress that is inevitable with the discovery of betrayal, or for people who are struggling with unwanted sexual behavior who are heaped under a load of shame. And what I want to tell you is that this is a safe space, this space, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on a podcast, that you are not alone. There are hundreds and thousands of people struggling with these issues of betrayal and unwanted sexual behavior that are struggling in silence and in shame also. And after going to a million holiday events with family and friends and having to fake it and put on a brave face, I just want to invite you to take a breath and take your mask off. There is no hiding or pretending with your Creator, with God. He knows. He knows what you're struggling with. He sees you and He knows what you need in a way you may not even be aware. So what I also want to invite you to do as you continue to just breathe a little bit more slowly and a little bit more deeply, calm your breath, calm your heart rate down. What I want to invite you to right now is to ask the question, what is it that I need right now? In the United States, we tend to live this super, super fast-paced life. And I know there's listeners that will hear this episode from around the world. So if this doesn't apply to you and the way you live, there's going to be other things of value for you in this episode. But I know in the United States, we live at breakneck speed. And we do not take time to slow down, to breathe, and to ask what we need. Sometimes we think it's selfish to say, what do I need? But the reality is, the greatest commandment that Jesus tells us, this is the greatest commandment, is to love the Lord your God and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And we so often skip over the loving ourselves part, feeling like it's selfish, like slowing down and taking a breath and resting and pondering what we need is not necessary and it's selfish. But I really wonder this, do we avoid slowing down and breathing more deeply and asking what we need? Because we're so busy, or is it because we're avoiding the ache the pain, the grief and sorrow that we feel because we, our families, the world around us is so broken. And it's painful to consider that. It's painful to slow down enough to feel those painful feelings. And if you're struggling with shame because of your unwanted sexual behavior, or with pain and confusion and disorientation after betrayal, I want you to know that you are not alone. These feelings of shame and disorientation and grief and fear, these are all normal human responses to these struggles. I want to offer you some hope, and yet I wish there was a way to make the process of healing from these struggles quick and easy, like follow this 3-step formula and you're gonna be okay. But these are very deep and complex struggles, betrayal and unwanted sexual behavior both. They both require very different paths to healing. And it can be very confusing to know who to trust when you don't even know if you can trust your spouse. For betrayed partners, many of us wonder how we could even ever trust ourselves when we had no idea this was going on. Just know that if you're struggling with how could I ever trust myself, my spouse, God, that struggle it makes sense, and you're not alone. As we head into a new year, so many people around us are going to be making New Year's resolutions and setting goals. And I just want to put this out there that if you're thinking, like, my goal is to not die from this pain, like, you're not alone. There is no way to heal from betrayal, to heal from unwanted sexual behavior without experiencing some pain. And really, it's a part of the process. God created pain as a signal that something's wrong that needs our attention. People with leprosy, part of the problem with leprosy is that it deadens the nerves. And so if you were to step on a nail or cut your hand, you wouldn't even know because you wouldn't feel the pain. Pain in our bodies, pain in our souls is actually an important signal that God allows to show us something's wrong, something needs our attention. So before you make any New Year's resolutions, what I want to encourage you and challenge you with is this. What if this new year, it's not a goal to stop acting out sexually, if you're the one struggling with unwanted sexual behavior, or to save your marriage if you're the one that's dealing with betrayal? What if your goal is something simpler and smaller, something more manageable, and something you could do right now and each day? What if your resolution was, I am going to start listening to my body and asking myself what I need? Now, this is tricky because if you're the one with the unwanted sexual behavior, one of the lies that people with unwanted sexual behavior with an addiction especially believe is that sex or acting out sexually is one of their greatest needs, and that's how you've gotten yourself to the point where your sexuality has taken on a life of its own and has become out of control in the first place. And let me assure you that that's a lie. Sex is not one of your greatest needs. But we do all have a need for belonging and love, to be accepted. We need that. It is how God made us. He belongs to himself, to a Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God didn't even create the world in isolation. He gave us each other. He gave us families. And that is why when a family breaks apart because of these struggles, it is so devastating and painful. But your need for belonging, your need for love, your need for acceptance, these are good things. It can be painful to stop and go, where do I fit? Where do I belong now when my family is so shattered? That's so painful that sometimes we want to outrun that kind of ache and pain, the fear that we can feel over the future and how is this year going to play out? That is something that none of us knows. But what I do know is this: you are profoundly loved by God. He wants to be near to you. He is near to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. And so if you're someone who you really like to be strong and be there for everybody else, and all of a sudden you find yourself crushed under the weight of your pain, and you're like, I can't figure out who I am anymore. This level of crisis is so profound, I can hardly breathe. Again, you are not alone. And this is a normal reaction to this level of disorienting reality collapse and pain. If you have had a discovery of sexual betrayal in your marriage in the last couple of months, you're still in the early stages of healing. Even if you've had some reprieve from the intensity of the pain and you think, oh, maybe I'm out of the woods and not in the worst part anymore. The waves of grief, the waves of pain that come with the aftermath of this struggle are surprising. And you may find that if you've held it at bay throughout the holiday season for the sake of your kids, it might come rushing back in the new year when kids go back to school and the world goes back to, quote, normal again. And if that's you, just know that it's not that you're too broken or that there's something wrong with you, that it's come back. That is the nature of grief and loss, sorrow, suffering, and pain after so big a blow as finding out that there have been sexual secrets in your marriage. If you're struggling, you're normal, and yet I want to give you hope. Not hope that you follow a 3-step formula and everything's going to be okay. Not hope that you can take this pill and it's going to make you feel better. There is no formula, but there are real steps that you can take to heal from unwanted sexual behavior, to be set free from the shame, to live like the person you know that you were created to be. Because I know many of you who are struggling with unwanted sexual behavior, you hate that part of yourself that is acted out sexually. And you want to lock them in a jail cell and never to return again. Unfortunately, that is not an effective way to heal, trying to shame ourselves and lock part of ourselves away. Every part of you, whether you're the one dealing with the sexual struggles or you're the one dealing with betrayal, every part of you has developed inside of you for a reason, usually for self-protection. I've had a year where I've discovered some things about the heart of God that have me in complete awe and amazement, even after being a Christian for, 33 years, walking with God. I have had a lot of struggles and difficulties and hardships in the past year, and a lot of breakthroughs where I realized some of the things that I knew God said were true, but I didn't feel were true. I couldn't see how it could be true. I've been able to see with new eyes. I've gotten this level of clarity about God's goodness and his power, his willingness to enter into the mess, his willingness to show up for us, and my own tendency to react to difficulty and circumstances, to self-protect, not in the healthy boundaries kind of a way, but in a kind of self-sabotage kind of way. And what I have learned, what I have experienced from God is so hopeful. I just want to encourage you to stay close to listening to his voice. And I'm going to close out this episode with a little prayer experience with you, a guided visualization where you can receive from God what it is that you need for this new year. Not necessarily goals or aspirations, but nearness, belonging, and hope. Now, I cannot offer you hope. I cannot say, oh, your marriage will make it, or, oh, your kid won't get in trouble, or your kids won't be harmed or traumatized by what is blown up in your family. I cannot give you hope for those things because it's just not reality. But I can offer you hope that you are so treasured and loved by your Creator, by the God of the universe, by Jesus. You are so close to his heart, like he wants to draw you so close to his heart. If you are brokenhearted, that is that place of humility, of like, I need you, God. That is the place where he dwells. He gives grace to the lowly. I recently experienced a retreat with Women in the Battle members, and one of a friend who was there witnessing what we were experiencing at this retreat, she said, there's just this even playing ground here. Like, there's no pretense that like some people are better than others, because that's what we do as humans, right? We measure ourselves against each other and, oh, I'm better than you, or, oh, I'm worse than you. And we put on masks and we pretend like we have it all together. We self-protect because we're afraid of being hurt. When you take down the mask, when you're honest with safe people who are not going to judge you, but going to love you and accept you and point you to God, and you can put down your armor and your sword, there is a thick, palpable experience of God's presence, especially when we're with other people who are glad to be with us and who can hold space for that pain. Pain is not repulsive to God. Arrogance, deception, those things, yeah, God is not drawn to that. Which is why all of us, if we're following Christ, we want to draw near to his heart in humility, in vulnerability, in honesty. So often, we're not even honest with ourselves. So I want to challenge you today as you think about, what do you have on the horizon that could give you hope for a new year? I encourage you to take out a piece of paper and just list out what you're hopeful for. And like the material things, job advancements, status, owning possessions, all of these things, they're just like empty. The real crown of life is unity with God, knowing him, leaning into him, experiencing his peace, experiencing his presence, and loving and being loved by other people in all our vulnerability, in all our weakness. Not everybody can do that for us. But I want to invite you to just draw near to God's presence right now. Because even if you don't have a single person in your life, in your vicinity, who feels safe, or who you know that you could run to and be honest and vulnerable with, you can do that with God. He is Emmanuel, God with us. He is here. So I invite you to just slow and deepen your breath. And I am going to be praying for you and with you, but then also inviting you into an experience where you can seek God's face for what you want to have hope for in the new year. So God, we thank you. I just thank you for every man and woman who's listening to this episode. Your heart for your created beings, for people, your heart is massive, so much bigger, so much deeper, so much wider than we could ever comprehend. Our perspective is so limited, God. So often we think we know best and we know what we need and we know what we need to do. And God, we can't see that far into the future. We cannot see what is coming ahead, but you can. And so I just ask for your reassurance and your promises to rise up inside of us, just even for the next right thing that we need today. For some of us, it might be a nap. For others, it's a nourishing meal. For others, it's putting down our phone so that we're not doom scrolling, adding more fear to our already dysregulated and overwhelmed nervous system. For some of us, we need to call somebody who cares and we need to unload on them and share our hearts. We need to break the isolation. God, you alone know what every person needs. And I invite your voice to speak clearly. And what is our next right thing to move closer to you and to move closer to the people that you've created us to be. So dear listener, I'm going to be silent for 30 seconds here and I invite you to listen and look and just see what God is showing you. And now I invite you to picture a place that is meaningful to you, a place of beauty, a place of peace, a place where you have felt fully alive. Maybe it was up in the mountains on a hike or on a beautiful beach, listening to the roar of the ocean. Maybe it was in a kayak or a canoe on a river. Or maybe it was your grandmother's kitchen. You see that place of safety and joy? I invite you to look around and just notice what you see. Through the eyes of your mind and heart, you can feel the textures of the things around you. Maybe it's grass or pine needles. Maybe it's water or sand, or just a warm cup of hot cocoa in your hands. Just feel whatever's in your environment in this place of peace. Next, listen to whatever sounds are in this environment. Maybe it's a breeze rustling through the trees, or maybe it's the roaring sound of the ocean. Just listen. And as you breathe deeply, just notice what you smell. Maybe it's salt air or the smell of evergreen trees. Maybe it's cookies baking in the oven. Just notice what you smell. This place in your memory, it just resides in your heart, and I love the gift that God gives us that we can bring it up and kind of re-experience it through imagination Kids are so good at imagination, and as adults, we tend to just reject it and be more committed to using our brains for logic and making decisions. But sometimes we need to humble ourselves like a child and experience a moment of peace and joy. And in this place of peace and joy, God is there. He was there, and he is here with you now. Sometimes we just can't perceive him, just like the disciples walking on the road to Emmaus, and Jesus appeared to them after the crucifixion and the resurrection, and they didn't even recognize him, it says, until later. So whether you could experience and feel and see God's presence in this place of peace at the time or not, I invite you to just look around right now in this place of peace and just notice if you can perceive Jesus's presence. It could be through an image you see, perhaps you see his face or hear his voice, or just sense his peace and his love. Or maybe you don't notice or identify his presence in this place of peace at all. And if that's the case, it's okay. Just enjoy this place of joy and beauty and peace that God wants you to enjoy and delight in anew. If your thoughts wander, it's okay. Just bring your attention back to your breath, making sure that you're still breathing a little deeper and slower than usual. And if you are perceiving God's presence, feel free to just notice what he's showing you, notice what he's doing, or ask him what he wants to tell you, and then just listen. Take a few more deep breaths and just enjoying this place of peace. You might even consider asking him, God, show me what to place my hope in this coming year. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and reorient yourself to the space that you're in right now. I strongly encourage you, if you did experience God's presence, if you sensed him showing you something or speaking something to you, I encourage you to write it down and share it with somebody that you feel safe with. Sharing what God is showing you brings it all like so much more deeply through our minds and our souls, and helps it settle and helps us to hold on to that. If you did not perceive God's presence, what I want to encourage you with is not to judge yourself that like you did it wrong or something's wrong with you. Many of us, especially in Western culture that values logic and tangible things, right? We don't use our imagination or open ourselves up to the possibility of God speaking to us. But God is as alive and willing to speak to his people today as he was when the scriptures were written. And he has hope for you. It may not be in the things that you want to place your hope in. Ultimately, he is our hope. And my hope is that this experience of turning to God right now, as we get ready to start a new year, that's where you're going to hear what you really need. Now, another thing to think about, if you're having a hard time slowing down and quieting your mind and listening, that could be trauma. Betrayal is super traumatic, and it makes it difficult to slow down. And sometimes when we do slow down and we quiet ourselves and try to rest or dial into God, we're combated with intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, if you will, imagining what we have heard has happened in the sexual secrets in our marriage. If that's you, There's nothing wrong with you. This is a normal trauma reaction to betrayal. And your ability to slow down and hear God will return over time if you get the right help and the right support. I want to leave you with this as we go into a new year. If you are a betrayed partner and you are wanting more guidance and clarity with your next steps for healing, because healing doesn't happen over time with no support, no structure, no guidance. We heal in community and we heal with the right guidance and support. I am offering a free 5-day experience called Operation Restoration. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or you are listening to it on a podcast app, in the show notes, I will have links to be able to sign up for Operation Restoration. It's a free 5-day experience. I will offer some live Zoom meetings, and I will offer some just short videos and worksheets that talk about some keys to recovering from sexual betrayal. This is not an easy path, but it can happen. And for anyone struggling with unwanted sexual behavior, stay tuned. Make sure you're on our mailing list, because my husband Michael is going to be releasing some exciting resources for men struggling with unwanted sexual behavior, and also opening his Men in the Battle membership for men. Wherever you're at, I want you to know that you're not crazy, that there is hope. I build and place all of my hope in God and in who He is, in His love, His goodness, His truth, His justice, even when we can't see it on the earth. And I'm holding out a hand of hope for you, no matter where you're at. Until next time, I'm holding out that hope for you.